Welcome everybody to our May 3rd agenda session, and that was the only zoo joke I'm going to make, I promise. This could be a wild meeting. Sorry, I had to do it. All right. If I can get a motion on our minutes, please. Thank you. Without objection, the minutes will stand. Ordinances on final reading. Madam Clerk, will you read item 5A, please?
An ordinance reapportioning and redistricting the 9 districts for the city council.
Thank you. Seeing no lights, resolutions, 7A, please.
A resolution authorizing the Chief Human Resources Officer to enter into an agreement with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee to provide health plan administration services to the city active and retired employees at the approximate cost of $1,450,000 per year for a 4-year contract with a 1-year renewal option beginning July 1st, 2022.
Councilman Henderson?
Thank you, sir. And I'm not seeing Joda, but Brooke, I had asked a question a couple of weeks ago, I think, about just making sure anytime it talks about our retirees, I just want to make sure that they're still receiving the same benefits that at least that they were receiving previously. And I think the answer I was given is maybe better benefits with less cost.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. No other lights. 7B, Madam Clerk.
A resolution authorizing the Chief Human Resources Officer to enter into an agreement with Epiphany RX to provide pharmacy benefit manager services to the city active and retired employees at the approximate cost of $600,000 per year for a 4-year contract with a 1-year renewal option beginning July 1st, 2022.
Seeing no lights. Item C, please.
A resolution authorizing the Chief Human Resources Officer to enter into an agreement with Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee to provide voluntary vision insurance to city employees at the approximate cost of $200,000 per year for a 4-year contract with a 1-year renewal option beginning July 1st, 2022, which cost will be paid by city employees deducted.
Seeing no lights. Under Mayor's Office, item D, this was added by permission of the chair. Brooke, you want to tell us 10 seconds about this item? And one of the questions in advance was that the person hired for this position will have an understanding that it is grant funded.
Yes, they will know that it is grant funded, and this is a partnership between the with the county as well, and they will be working in the Hamilton County General Sessions Court and working to transform the eviction courts, and they will be working with the local eviction prevention efforts and rent relief programs.
Thank you. Seeing no lights. Oh, Councilman Henderson, see your light?
Come back. How many years is this grant?
I believe it is 4 years total, but I think it goes through the first 2, and then the option to move forward to the next half.
So so the 99,000 covers 2 years. Is that what you're saying?
I'll have to double check on that.
And is this are we having to put any money with this for the salary, for the position?
We are not putting money towards the salary. All of the salary and benefits are grant funded.
Okay.
And I'll circle back on the length of time.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Under Police, Madam Clerk, item E.
A resolution to amend resolution number 30805, authorizing acceptance of grant contract with the State of Tennessee Department of Finance and Administration, Office of Criminal Justice Program for the Victim of Crime Act of 1984 grant for the grant period to be extended July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2023, with an increase of an additional $200,000, increasing the total from $800,000 to the total amount of $1 million.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I'm seeing no lights. Purchasing, if you'll get out your purchases, we have 12 items plus an emergency purchase. Any questions for staff on purchasing items? I am seeing none, and just so those of you following along, we have had this information this week and opportunity to ask questions to staff. Moving on to our May 10th agenda. If you would, open your May 10th agenda, and please advise any questions or concerns on any items there. Again, this packet we are familiar with, seeing no lights. Future considerations are three-week look ahead. If you'll take a look at your future considerations. I am seeing no lights. We do not have any department reports. We will now move into committees. I would like to call Chairman Hester to begin our Parks and Public Works Committee meeting at this time.
Welcome to Parks and Public Works Committee. Can we have the minutes approved? Thank you. Madam Clerk, can you read Resolution F, please?
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to approve payment in the amount of $44,202.65 to Disaster Master, Inc. for emergency cleanup of residential wastewater backups at 710 West 42nd Street, 1516 Lyndhurst Drive, and 1419 Mercer Street.
I see no hands. G, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to approve payment up to $104,262.50 to Xylem Dewatering Solutions, Inc. for emergency bypass pumping rental at Big Ridge 14 wastewater pumping station due to forced main connection damage caused by a settlement.
No hands. H, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to execute a one-year term renewal for the existing contract with Samsara Software for real-time GPS vehicle tracking via CDW Government LLC per resolution number 30617 for year 2 of the agreement and the stated amount in their agreement for the term from April 30th, 2022 through April 30th, 2023 for a renewal amount of $122,913.
Thank you. I, please.
A resolution to amend resolution number 31034 to include NCR Corporation as the authorized vendor of merchant services under the ENCO sewer billing services contract eligible for payment by the city for services rendered.
Thank you. Ordinance on the first reading. W, please.
An ordinance closing and abandoning an unopened alley in the 2100 block of East 26th Street as detailed on the attached map, subject to certain conditions.
X, please.
An ordinance closing and abandoning an unopened alley along the 800 block of Dodds Avenue and the 2700 block of Kirby Avenue as detailed on the attached map, subject to certain conditions.
Y, please.
An ordinance closing and abandoning multiple alleyways in the 1800 block of Vance Avenue and the 800 block of South Orchard Knob Avenue as detailed on the attached map, subject to certain conditions.
Resolution I, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for Department of Public Works to approve change order number 1 final with Bliss Products LLC of Lithia Springs, Georgia for contract number R20017-217, Summit of Softball Complex Improvements from the Easter Tornado 2020, shade restructures replacement for the increase of $3,765 for the reconciliation of unit items to release a contingency in the amount of $1,253 for a total contract amount of $54,051.65.
I see no hands. J, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for Department of Public Works to approve change order number 1 final with Wright Brothers Construction Company Incorporated of Charleston, Tennessee for contract number S18001201 Brennan Avenue drainage improvements for a decrease of $84,790.07 for reconciliation of unit items to release a contingency of $76,950 for a total contract amount of $684,715.93.
Madam Clerk, can you take a breath for a second? Can you read K, L, M, N, and O together, please?
Yes, sir. A resolution amending number 31026 to increase the estimate amount of $800,000 due to additional contract utilization for the on-call design and plan production services contract number S200041100 with the following firms: WK Dixon, Volkert, Barge Design, S&ME, RK&K, Geocentric, CTI, Croy, Chazen, Brown and Caldwell, and Arcadis for a revised estimate amount of $1,050,000. A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to renew year 2 of a 4-year term for the on-call blanket contracts for the geo-environmental consulting and construction materials testing services contract E21002-301 with the following 7 consultant firms: Geoservices LLC, Geosyntec Consultants, CS Ware and Associates LLC, S&ME Inc., Santec Consulting Services Inc., Terracon Consultants Inc., and Thompson Engineering Inc., based upon the 3 service categories of geotechnical, construction material testing, and environmental services for each qualified consultant for an annual amount of $750,000 to be used by all departments. A resolution authorizing the renewal of 2 blanket contracts for year 3 of 3 for land disposal of biosolid sludge and other special waste to Capital Waste Services for the Wright County landfill under blanket agreement PA 100014, and Republic Services for the Bradley County landfill under blanket agreement PA 100066 for a total amount of up to $125,000. A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to approve payment to Tennessee One Call System for wastewater underground utility location services for 2022 in the amount of $43,943.32. A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to execute contract number S21009-101 with CTI Engineers for landfill deficiency recommendations and repairs to the liner, leachate, and gas collection systems in the city and Summit landfills in the amount of $420,000.
That was beautiful. Thank you, Madam Clerk. At this time, we have a presentation from the Chattanooga Zoo.
Well, I just want to go ahead and apologize for Sam. She makes funny noises when she gets nervous, and Baldwin gets really embarrassed, but Sam really makes funny noises. Hello, everyone. Thank you for having us today. We know you're on quite the schedule, so we'll be mindful of your time. I'm Darty Long. I'm the CEO and president of the Chattanooga Zoo. This marks my 38th year at the zoo, and I was here when City Council was formed, so I have quite a history. The building wasn't quite this fancy, so there are a lot of differences then. I want to recognize some folks. I've got animal care staff, Sam, Baldwin, who everybody's heard the alpaca, Sam, who really doesn't make funny noises, Alyssa. Who do you have, Alyssa? Nigel, the chinchilla. Will, who has G, Tort, the gopher tortoise, and Matt, Tonka, the 3-banded armadillo. And then also accompanying me today are some of my staff. This is Chloe Watts. I did it right that time. Director of Marketing and Communications, Donna DeWeese, who is also brand new to our staff, but not brand new to this city by any means. She's our Director of Development, Director of Finance, who's Danielle Romano. And then finally, let me introduce the current chair of Friends of the Zoo's Board of Directors, Pete Lapina. He's been around the zoo for a little bit, but I'll let him tell you about that.
Thanks, Darty. Thanks for having us today. Brought a little life to a council meeting, which doesn't happen often, I suppose. As you know, the zoo has been around for 85 years, and this is our anniversary this year. And Darty mentioned she's been a part of that for 38 years and taken our zoo from not a real happy zoo to what we consider a real treasure for the region and a real jewel for the city. And it's been a pleasure working in partnership with you all over the past 6 years that I have personally worked with you. And I just want to say thank you from the board, from the administration, and from the staff at the zoo. Their hard work has made this happen, and hopefully we'll have another 40 years to serve together. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yes, we're very grateful to have Friends of the Zoo who have been around as long as I have. And they're part of the reason, well, they're a lot of the reason we still have a zoo today. So real quickly, thank you. Let's go to that first slide for us there. This is, well, if you haven't been to the zoo, for sure, you need to check out our newest animals. Those are our giraffe. And I have to say, that's not a giraffe. Even I know that's a giraffe. Sorry, I talk all over the place. These giraffe have been something very special for our zoo. They arrived in the middle of COVID. We had been open a week after being closed for almost 2 months, and they have been such a godsend. They have brought so many people into the zoo, and I think the experience of having this kind of animal for our community is something that we just can't overlook. It's really something special. You know, our children and our community deserve to have a first-class zoo. It doesn't have to be the biggest zoo, but it needs to provide first-class experiences. And my thanks to both the City of Chattanooga and Friends of the Zoo and some pretty amazing private donors who helped us bring these giraffe. Next slide, please. All right, our attendance. Now, when I came to the zoo, it was free, so we didn't really do an attendance count. It was 1.5 acres, and for those of you who are from Chattanooga, you might remember what that 1.5 acres looked like. We've changed a little bit, and last year our attendance was 288,561, which is an all-time high. It's been a real roller coaster, as it has for every business, as we go up and down with attendance and all sorts of things. But a few years ago, we hired a private company to help us manage the attendance, the admissions, the retail, and the food sales. And that piece has really helped our revenues. And to talk a little bit about our revenues, I'm going to make Danielle come up here. Danielle's our director of finance, and she's the one that makes sure we don't spend money we shouldn't.
You can go to the next slide. I just wanted to say how much we appreciate and utilize the yearly appropriation of $750,000 that we received from the city. 750,000. I said that incorrectly, didn't I? Which represents nearly 18% of the zoo's total budget. The funds are always beneficial to our operation, and the appropriation has provided us with great opportunities, especially given the recent circumstances over the past couple of years. The city funds granted to us, as well as the fortune of remaining nearly fully operational through the pandemic, has allowed the zoo to be able to better position ourselves for similar unforeseen events by creating an emergency fund. This emergency fund has allowed us to remain focused on our mission to serve the community through educational opportunities, as well as allowing us to continuously improve our zoo experience. We wouldn't have been able to utilize our resources as well without the important funds received from the City of Chattanooga, so I thank you.
And that is our operational budget. That does not include capital improvements.
Correct.
And Danielle was especially instrumental and so important in getting our PPP loans, which really saved us. That's a lot of work, and she put her heart and soul into it and helped us get through that. So we were really grateful for that. All right, next slide. Okay, keeping an eye on education, which is one of the most important things we do at the zoo. Our on-site education programs to date this year have been 4,537 individuals impacted by off-site programs. And that's everything from senior safaris, which are adorable. And by the way, not all seniors are terrified of snakes. I learned that today when I saw this big, huge snake, and they said he'd been to a senior program. And I asked if, in fact, that was true because I was a little concerned, and they said they loved him. So that was a little off there. Education reaches so many children. We have Title I grants that allow children to come for free. We even have grants that pay for buses, which is something I'm very proud of because we found out a long time ago that when people weren't taking advantage of those Title I grants, guess what? They didn't have the money for the buses. So we really pay attention to our community. We try to make sure that we're answering every need that we can. Next slide, please. Oh, for those of you who know me, the PEDS program is probably one of my most favorite. I don't know, that program means something special to me. It started in 2002, so it's celebrating its 20th year. We take 18 to 20 youth over the summer from our minority underserved youth in the community, and we give them jobs in our zoo. For 8 weeks, they receive paid employment to learn a little bit about working in the zoo. And it has been amazing. This past year, 9 of those youth stayed on for part-time jobs, both with animal care and education, and even in our partner group up front, SSA, who is Service Systems Associates. So they got everything from marketing. We had a great marketing intern. And we've just really enjoyed this program and looking forward to expanding it. And hopefully this year we'll be looking at a paid internship program, which should really help that. Next slide. All right. Chloe's going to tell us a little bit about some of our other health.
Sure. Hi, I'm Chloe. I'm going to talk a little bit about our volunteers and camps and things like that. So last year, we saw 626 total volunteers come through the zoo. So that's everything from our student volunteers. So we actually let kids 18 and younger come and volunteer at the zoo, all the way to businesses like Unum in Chattanooga that come and bring groups to do things like remulching our chimp yard and things like that need to be done. So we're super grateful for that. We had more than 8,000 hours given for a value of $194,000. So really huge impact for the zoo, and that's something that we're certainly very proud of. Next slide. Awesome. So Zoo Camp, which is happening right now, we have spring break and summer Zoo Camp, and 411 students came through our Zoo Camp last year. And Darty, correct me if I'm wrong, some of those are scholarship students. Yeah, so that's something that's really special. They're super, super hands-on. My favorite, they have a mud day. So they learn about all the creatures that crawl through the mud, and they even get to play in it. They get up close and personal and create enrichment items for our animals. So just another really, really fabulous education opportunity for our community that we're really excited about. And then this next slide is something that I personally work through our online audience. So we have, and that number has actually climbed, I think, to 68,000 since we created this presentation. We're slowly climbing up there of Facebook followers and almost 50,000 Instagram followers. So we're really proud of our online community. So we're able to bring the zoo to those who, especially during COVID, or people who live, out of our market, our immediate market, bring the zoo to those people in really up close and personal ways. So that's something we're really excited about. And I think I'm turning it back over to Darty.
Don't you wish I could just get a little bit of enthusiasm out of this group? They're just, All right, next slide, please. All right, new expansion, something we just finished that I'm really proud of, and we'll go to the next slide. And I have to tell you, I'm very honest with this group, as I always have been. Part of the reason we have a new red panda exhibit was Avi, I believe, on that last slide. Yes, Avi decided to go walkabout in the zoo, not once but twice, and got us into some trouble. And so we had to redo his exhibit. We got a beautiful new exhibit, though. Actually, it's much more user-friendly for the animals and for our guests. We have better viewing. And before I do step away, I don't want to let you know that we are planning Africa too as we speak. In fact, the plans are already done. That'll increase the size of the exhibit for the giraffe, bring warthogs, servals, Cape porcupines, and I think the aldabras too might get a hint of that if Will has anything to say. No, it's not an aldabra, I'm sorry. You get me confused. You bring so many tortoises. We have some aldabras that are going to be there after we all die, which still amazes me because they live so long. Do you have any questions for me today?
Sharon Henderson. I mean, sorry about that.
I'm just councilman now. Thank you very much.
That was slim, man.
Darty, I just can't say enough good things. You have done a phenomenal job as director of the zoo, and the vision that you've cast, what this zoo has become, it really is a jewel in this city. And it's not just a zoo, it's an event space. I'm always just overwhelmed at the events that you have there at the zoo to try to attract people, to bring them in. And the educational piece, I'm so impressed with the PEDS program. I'm just excited that we're able to bring in our young people and offer them jobs and help them get educated through this. This is great, and I just appreciate you bringing all the animals down, and your staff is so enthusiastic. y'all do a great job.
Well,
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for that. But it's this community that's made the zoo we have today. We've had so many blessings. Do a quick sidebar. Today, I accepted believe the 27th check in a row from a yearly donation made by the Chattanooga School for Liberal Arts, who started with their second grade class about 27 years ago. We were trying to bringing a donation down. And we're so honored that they think about the zoo every year. That says something when your community feels that way. Any other questions?
Ken Smith. Councilman Smith, please.
Thank you, Chair. Darty, Councilman Henderson kind of beat me to the kudos. And I could just say ditto and leave it at that. But thank you so much for everything that you've done over the years for the zoo. And I've watched it grow for a very, very long time. And I've always loved to come and attend. And the people that you have working at the zoo speak volumes, not just those that addressed us, but all those that deal with the animals. I've seen it firsthand at the zoo. I've seen it here. So thank you for establishing such an incredible culture at the zoo that there is nothing but excitement around the people that are there. And just again, kudos for everything. The events Chairman Henderson mentioned are my absolute favorite. There's some really incredible events that take place in our city. And bar none, my wife and I love the events at the zoo the best. They are fantastic. I look forward to more as the years come on. They've always been really, really great. So again, just thank you so much for everything that you do to keep this as it is a jewel for our city.
Thank you.
And a wonderful thing for us to have. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm sorry, he's never made that noise before.
Councilwoman Noel, please.
Thank you, Councilman Hester. I would also like to say kudos. I'm just going to put a cherry on top of that, okay? It is a double goodness for me. You are in my district, District 8, and the zoo has been very good to historic Orchard Knob by letting us have use of the facilities for picnics and those type of things. And also, I feel all the prescriptions and the medications for the animals at my pharmacy that I work at. So you
get some winners over there.
Yes, it's a win-win for me. So I really do appreciate it. It is wonderful, wonderful, and thank you.
Chairman Leffert.
Darty, we are truly blessed to have you and your staff as I meet more and more folks that come on board with your zoo. The zoo, it is absolutely fascinating every time we come. It is a true treasure for my family to come and to always learn something new, to see something that we might have missed before. But I think the genuine hospitality that you create is just absolutely fantastic and a blessing to our community. Thank you.
Dr. Burns.
We go back a minute.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so Darty, you're my good friend and my neighbor, and yeah, we do go back. You've done a wonderful job, and I think maybe everybody doesn't know the extent to which you save and love animals all over. Our neighborhood is full of them. Thank you for the good job you've done on a very personal note. The other thing is the zoo's fun. The zoo is just fun. And whether we're bringing young people or we're partying there, it's just fun. And the fact that you can live with the zoo as a community event place, you've done a great job. So my friend, I wanted to say publicly, kudos all over the place. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Karen.
Councilwoman Hill.
Thank you, Chair. So I just wanted to point out how terrific the children's programming is at the zoo. I've had personal experience. My children were early pioneers of zoo camp, and it was, I'd say, the best spring break camp or fall break camp they ever did. They absolutely loved it, learned a ton. And now that my children are getting ready to fly out of the nest, I have some of my fondest family memories there. So I do feel like in the ecosystem of attractions in Chattanooga, this is a vital part of our family-friendly offerings. And I thank you guys for all that you do.
on behalf of the council, the city of Chattanooga, you guys do an amazing job. Continue the good work. And I know a few council people were ready for that Spirited and Wild.
That's right. You just let us know. And also, if there are things we can do to serve our community better, please let us know. You represent individual districts. We belong to this entire city. So please let us know if there's a special program, a special family, or a special group of people that could benefit by visiting the zoo, and we'll take care of it.
Thank you
All right,
again.
we're going to take our noisy animals out of here now.
Sherman Leffert.
And
No, we gotta go into this.
All right. Thank you, Darty. All right, we're going to call to order Planning and Zoning Committee meeting for Tuesday, May 3rd. Karen, we've got a lot to cover. We are going full throttle. We have a little bit of a change in format due to the number of items. So if you would, please, we're going to dance around a little bit, right, Karen?
Yes, hopefully it's pretty well organized still.
So I'm assuming you're going to start with items A, which is the 0070. What we're going to do in this format is cover the items that we have known opposition at Planning Commission, and then we will then leave time for questions on the items that are coming to us with approvals and conditions without opposition. If you have questions about those, when we get to that section, you'll have an opportunity to ask Karen. If not, then we will then move on to an ADU presentation. So Karen?
Okay, we had 6 cases had opposition. All of the zoning cases on the agenda have some recommendation of approval. So whether it's different than what the applicant requested or with conditions, but they're all coming to you with recommendations to approve. We also have a special exception permit for a new liquor store and the ordinance amendment for the accessory dwelling unit. So the first case in opposition, so I tried to note the 6A because we will be hitting the cases that are had opposition first and then swing back. So I will try to refer to both the agenda item and then the case number. Case 2022, I believe that's supposed to be 70, is 100 West Bell Avenue. It's rezoning from C2 to the form-based code district was the original request. The applicant noted that the rezoning was to allow for alcohol sales in an existing grocery deli. The property is in Hill City, and the zoning map shows that red C2 zone surrounded by the yellow single-family residential zones. And this is for an existing corner market that's about 1 block west of North Market Street. Their staff had originally recommended approval for the form-based code, but at the April 11th Planning Commission meeting, during the March Planning Commission meeting, there was opposition present. They had concerns about expanding the form-based code. So Planning Commission directed staff to consider rezoning to UGC instead of the form-based code, and the Neighborhood Association provided a list of requested conditions. Staff reviewed those conditions and submitted some additional conditions. Planning Commission, at the public hearing, there was still opposition, so they're recommending rezoning to UGC with a list of revised conditions as shown there. And we're not aware if this addressed all of neighborhoods' concerns or if the applicant has some additional comments on the proposed conditions.
Thank you, Karen. Councilman Henderson, I've got a different light on, so I'm going to hit your light again. There we go. You're on, sir.
Thank you, sir. Hey, Karen, so the Planning Commission recommendations, and I guess, I don't know, they revised the slide prior to this one, which I guess was form-based code, but it allows him the business hours to be a little bit different. It allows him to stay open to 12 a.m. instead of the 11 a.m. that was, I guess, originally requested by the Hill City neighborhood. Do you know why that was changed? I mean, was that the recommendation of the applicant or the request of the applicant, or, because I had forwarded, Chairman Ledford, the letter from the Hill City neighborhood requesting the hours of 11 a.m., not,
Right.
or
And that,
11 p.m., not 12 a.m.
and that's the 11 p.m. is what's shown there as the list of requested conditions. I'm not certain how we ended up. I'm going to take advantage of Brian Schultz being here, though. Brian, do you remember Planning Commission?
That came about as a negotiation between the neighborhood association and the applicant. He wanted to stay open, I think, till 1 or 2. Planning Commission kept asking the neighborhood, was 12 o'clock or 12 a.m. acceptable? They said yes, and the applicant would like to extend that. But the neighborhood association, I think that, I can't remember his name, but anyway, he agreed to.
Was it the president, was it Grant, the
Yes,
president?
Grant, yes, Grant Zion.
Oh, so, okay, so the president of the Hill City neighborhood
Yes.
agreed to the 12
That's correct.
a.m.? Okay,
That's correct.
thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Hill?
Thank you. I also noticed that there was a request from the Neighborhood Association to it's item number 3, no outdoor amplification of sound, but I'm not seeing that on these. Is that because it's already covered under our noise ordinance?
Yeah.
Okay.
We did kind of try to identify those that were going to be difficult to enforce or were covered elsewhere. So that was kind of the list from the community, and we reviewed it and discussed it with partners.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilwoman. That's exactly what it was in the ordinance. All right. Seeing no other lights, Karen, let's move on to our next item, which I believe is G.
G is case 91, and this is on Sandswitch Road in the Hickson area. It's just north of Lower Mill Road. It's a rezoning from R1 to RTZ residential townhouse zone. The yellow, this is a zoning map. It's properties R1 surrounded by R1 zoning. It's less than 5 acres with 39 units originally proposed. The site is surrounded by single-family detached homes. Staff had found that the request is compatible because they're proposing single-family detached residential uses, but it is not compatible with the density goals in the Hickson North River Plan and would introduce a new development form in the area. The Hickson Plan recommends low-density residential, which is classified as detached single-family, with some exceptions made when density is compatible. The average density in the area is about 3 dwelling units an acre, and the proposal or the RT zone allows up to 8 dwelling units an acre. So staff had recommended conditions limiting the uses to single-family use only and the number of residential lots to keep the density more compatible with the surrounding area. This says there was no opposition, but there was opposition, concerns about property values, traffic, and access to Dalemont. And I'll show you where that is on the map. But Planning Commission responded to that by adding some additional conditions, and there's some revised conditions. So it comes to a recommendation to approve detached single-family residential uses only, no more than 32 lots, a buffer along Dalemont, and no access to Dalemont Lane. And Dalemont Lane is, you can see on the right-hand side of their site plan, you see a cul-de-sac that connects to this part or abuts this property. That is the concern of the neighborhood, that the street would connect through to Dalemont. So those conditions are intended to address their concerns.
Thank you, Karen. Councilman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Karen, do you happen to recall why the decision was made from the recommendation of 24 units to the Planning Commission recommendation of 32 when it does not coincide with the Hickson plan of lower density?
I believe that was at the request of the applicant.
Okay, so Planning Commission went along with that request.
Well, the applicant originally proposed 39 lots. Staff had recommended 24 lots, and it's coming with 32 lots.
Okay, thank you.
Good,
Thank you,
Councilman.
sir.
Thank you. Seeing no other lights. Karen, item I.
Okay, this is on Mintom Drive in the East Brainerd area. It's a rezoning from R1 to RTZ, residential townhouse zero lot line zone for a single-family detached development with 31 units. The zoning map on the screen shows the brown shades of R1 and RTZ zoning in the area of this rezoning request. So there are similar type zones in the area. Property is about 1,000 feet east of Gun Barrel Road, and there's a mix of uses in the immediate area, including a church across the street, multifamily and single-family residential attached to the east, and there's also existing and future single-family attached to the west on the south side of Minton Road. Staff found the request is compatible with adopted plan, adjacent land uses and development form, and recommended a condition about driveways. There was opposition at Planning Commission regarding stormwater and flooding concern safety. Planning Commission did find the request compatible, though, with a setback for along the properties on Preston Circle and height limited to a maximum of 2 stories. And Preston Circle is to the south of this property. The site plan is shifted, and it'd be that area shown highlighted in green there. And this comes with a recommendation to approve with those 2 conditions.
Thank you, Karen. This item is in District 4. Been working with the Twin Brook community and also the Preston Circle community. Received a letter Saturday night before Planning Commission. By Sunday, we had 3 of the 5 conditions already worked out with the applicant that they were unsuccessful in negotiating. Today, I've gotten word that we have a couple of other conditions because the applicant has reached out to the neighborhood association. So we should be seeing those come through and conditions and or concerns met. Thank you.
Okay.
Item J, please.
J is a rezoning on Northmore Road. This did have substantial opposition. It's North Brainerd for a multifamily senior housing living project. We did receive opposition and also support for the project. It's next to Tucker Baptist Church, and both the site and the church are zoned R1 residential zone. There is R2 zoning south of Bella Vista shown on the, which is shown in orange, and also some RT1 zoning to the northeast of the site. The applicant would like to rezone to R3 for a multifamily independent senior housing project, and the applicant originally proposed 79 units. Just to orient you some more, Brainerd High School is to the right. The Salvation Army development or building is to the south across Bella Vista Drive. The neighborhood of Vinoy Drive is running parallel to Northmore Road on the west. And those are the Vinoy Drive properties are some of the properties that abut the site. Staff had recommended to defer the case. Staff acknowledged that the proposed development could provide a residential form that the community may need, and its location is appropriate based on adjacent to those larger institutional uses, and staff recommended to give time for the applicant to conduct a community meeting and have conversations with elected officials about the proposed project. At Planning Commission, the applicant noted that they had already had several community meetings and been in contact with Councilman Hester. Planning Commission felt that the proposed rezoning was appropriate and a benefit for the community, and directed staff to provide potential conditions that would limit nuisances to adjacent properties, and wanted those for their April review of the case. So Planning Commission felt that the proposed rezoning was appropriate and is recommending rezoning subject to the following conditions regarding height, buffering, and a maximum of 63 units. So it comes with a recommendation to approve there. Our understanding is that there still is support and substantial opposition to this case.
Thank you, Karen. Councilman Hester.
That's correct. We have a divided neighborhood. I met several times with the church and those opposed this project. And right now, I think the thinking is that we're still at the negotiation table to please both parties. So I think when the time comes, I may have to defer this again. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilman. Karen, seeing no other lights, item O, please.
Okay, this is a project off Riverside Drive. It's kind of close to the Boathouse Restaurant, a rezoning to C2 commercial zone. I don't know that this is really opposition, but since someone was there, I thought it would be appropriate at this point in Planning and Zoning Committee agenda. So it's a rezoning from M1 to C2. The proposed use is retail and 45 residential units with boat docks. The purple color on the zoning map shows the area zone M1 manufacturing, and that zone allows a wide range of uses, but not residents. So that is the need for the rezoning. There's a mix of commercial office and warehouse uses in the area. Staff felt that the request is compatible with adopted plan, adjacent land uses and development form, and was recommending approval. There was opposition at Planning Commission. The person who spoke, her comments were more general as to kind of concerns about future plans for the area and her neighborhood, which is east of the site. So I don't know that she's actually in opposition and more just commenting about development and planning in the area. Planning Commission is recommending approving the rezoning.
Thank you, Karen. I see that person in the audience. Hi, Ms. Janice. Councilwoman Knoll, you want to hit your light for me? Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, thank you. I met with Ms. Gooden and her neighborhood association on Friday, last Friday. And there was a really good discussion, had lots of questions, a few concerns, and the developer and the contractor, I believe, was the contractor that was there as well. And I think everything worked out. So it was satisfied as far as I'm concerned. When I left and they all left, it was good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you.
All right, seeing no other lights. Karen, item R, please.
Okay, the next project is a rezoning request on Duncan Avenue. The applicant would like to rezone from R1 residential, R1 residential zone and R4 special zone to UGC urban general commercial zone. The proposed use is a multifamily residential project with 26 units. The property south of McCauley. McCauley is the red C2 commercial zone stripped to the north of the site. And the site's comprised of several parcels. 5 of the lots are zoned R1. The one on the corner is South Hawthorne is zoned R4. The aerial photo, you can see that non-residential pattern that's from the C2 zoning along McCauley. It's a mix of offices, there's funeral home, a church is part of that. There are single-family uses across Duncan Avenue, which is south of the site. So staff had recommended approval for the project. They found that it's compatible with adopted 3 plan because the UGC zone permits a variety of commercial uses that are not supported by the plan. Staff recommended residential uses only, a maximum height of 2 stories. There was opposition at Planning Commission, and Planning Commission responded to that opposition in part by recommending additional conditions. So this is coming with a recommendation to approve with the following conditions, addressing setback, rear loading parking, building height, residential uses. It notes that the office use is appropriate for 1801 Duncan Avenue, and that's that R4 zone property at the corner of South Hawthorne and Duncan.
Thank you, Karen. Councilwoman Coonrod, I believe this is in your district. No questions? Okay, thank you for your work on that. Karen, that takes care of our planning and zoning items with opposition. So looking at our time, if we would go back to item B, I'd like to take a quick tour around the dais and see if there are any concerns as we move through this list real quick. Councilman Henderson, I see your light. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I do have a concern about B. Karen, can you put that case up on the? I'm curious, when I first met with the developer, we had talked about UGC and it seems like we were all on the same page. He did consent to, I had requested that they would give public access to the river through a, well, I guess what will become a road through their property, which they consented to. I guess at some point when it went to staff, they were wanting a variance to the UGC to go to 5 stories. But I noticed at Planning Commission, at least what I had in my conditions, that even with the form-based code, the Planning Commission has limited this 4 stories, I think. Is that,
That's correct.
is
It
that
comes,
correct?
that is, it comes with a recommendation. The original request was for UGC. Staff had recommended a form-based code. And Planning Commission, there was no opposition. Planning Commission did move forward with a recommendation on the form-based code. It's the RRF 6 zone closer to the river, the RRV 6 zone closer to Manufacturers Road, and both of those have a condition of a maximum height of 4 stories. Councilman Henderson, after you mentioned that just prior to the meeting, I confirmed with Brian Schultz that 4 stories was the outcome of the Planning Commission meeting and that the applicant was okay with the 4 stories.
Well, I just want it to be on record that I'm all on board with apartments going on a 4-lane highway, which this Manufacturers Road is, and it is within walking distance of a loaf of bread and a gallon of milk. So I'm happy to see development like this going in this area. I just wanted to make sure that we didn't come next week and the applicant say, hey, was supposed to be 5 stories. And I guess I was going to request that staff look at, what 5 stories would look like, because I have driven the area and I was just concerned that 5 stories was going to be a little too much. But
Okay.
I'm happy. I'm perfectly happy with the 4 stories.
I can confirm with the applicants in the ordinance, just to be clear, because we have had a change from the original application to staff recommendation to Planning Commission, and just to confirm that that's the ordinance that we'll be acting on, and have them let me know if there's any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Smith?
Thank you, Chair. 2 questions. Karen, on item D, which is 2022-0080, it specifies revised on here. On my copy on the agenda, do you
Oh, I'm
recall what
sorry.
that revision is?
In 2022, on D,
D, yes, ma'am.
oh, I'm sorry, yes. And I had the old agenda printed out. The original agenda had an applicant version, a staff version, and a planning commission version. Staff and planning commission had the same recommendation, so it was revised for the caption to read, recommend for approval by staff and planning commission, just to try to reduce confusion.
That's great. I just wanted to know something about the case itself.
It was
changed.
the
I was not aware.
caption and
Okay,
not the
great.
case.
And then another question on F. The conditions that are being lifted, I know the area, but I just wanted to get a clarification on the conditions from you that they're wanting to lift and the purpose for such.
Yes, so this was for the rest of council might not have had a chance to look at this in detail. This was rezoning. This is partly the Coles and Academy site on
Right.
153 that was rezoned in 2006. It was the larger site. That whole area is shown there pretty much from Grub to 153. The applicant is asking to lift. There's 9 conditions. One, the shown in blue, they're not asking to lift. The rest of them were related to the proposed shopping center at that time. So it's kind of very specific to that one proposal. So the condition is in black. The staff comments are in red. We went through one by one. Some of those are very site plan specific to a site plan that no longer exists. Some of those are going to be addressed through other code items. So in the review and looking at each individual one, it was determined that lifting those conditions was appropriate.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm that because there were a couple of them that stood out to me as far as site plan, which I tend to like to ask for, not as much in this particular case. But then when it talks about build traffic signals, that's obviously a big issue out there. And if that was going to be a requirement, I was unsure why we were okay with lifting that.
And generally, we're finding that some conditions will be addressed through permitting. And if enough time has passed, the original situation might not apply and can be handled through the permitting process.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilwoman Hill, I saw your light and then it disappeared.
I've just, as we were talking through the Manufacturers Road case, I am thinking about the levels. To Councilman Henderson's point, this is an apartment complex that will be within walking distance of a grocery store, albeit an expensive one. And I floated the idea to the developers when they reached out to me because it abuts District 2 or could potentially. And I mentioned affordable housing to them, and they had not, it didn't even cross their mind. And so it sounds to me like the riverfront zoning only allows for 4 stories, so that is what it is. But as we think about the density of that area, I think anything we can do to help encourage them to think about how perhaps a percentage of those units could be at maybe 80 to 60% AMI, that could be really beneficial to District 1 or District 2, because we don't have a lot of affordable, accessible housing. That's all.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Does anyone else have comments or questions on an item? We can go down the list. We have a few minutes. Let's go to item C. Is in District 1. We good, Councilman, there? Okay. Item E. Councilman Smith. Item H. Councilman Smith. Good. Okay. Item K. Councilman Hester. Item L, Vice Chair, thank you. Item M. Hit your light for me, please. Councilwoman Knoll. Take you off. Try one more time for me, please, ma'am. How's that?
Okay, great. Item M, right? Is that where we were?
Item M.
Yes, okay. I haven't heard from anyone, but I would like to just reach out.
Karen, can we reach out to the applicant and ask them to please reach out to Councilwoman Knoll this week?
I will, yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you.
Item N is also in District 8. We good there? Yes, ma'am. Item P, also yours. Same request. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Item Q. Councilwoman Coonrod? You're good? Yes, ma'am. Item S. Councilwoman Coonrod? Good? Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Item T. Good. Thank you, ma'am. Item U. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Item V is actually a accessory dwelling unit. So before we go into ADUs, which I appreciate everyone's indulgence in a little bit of an unorthodox planning and zoning meeting today, but I believe every opportunity was given to cover the items on our agenda. So Karen, you want to move into our ADU ordinance?
I can, and if I can touch briefly on your agenda under Resolutions H, there is a special exceptions permit for a liquor store, and I'll just note that due to the zoning, the distance requirements don't apply, and staff did not have any concerns about that case. So, but it is on your agenda for next week.
Very good. Madam Vice Chair, do you have any concerns? Thank you very much. Okay, let's go back to item V. I believe we have a handout on our way. Thank you, Mr. Anderson.
Okay, let me. So this is an amendment to the zoning ordinance that would introduce or allow accessory dwelling units outside the form-based code. I just want to start by thanking Emily Wood. Emily's passing out the handout. She's the principal planner in the Development Services Department with Brian. We also received a lot of support and staff from Dallas Rucker and Chris Anderson and others. So just want to say thank you to them. So accessory dwelling units are an additional dwelling units on a property. They may or may not be attached to that primary dwelling unit. They come with their own kitchens and bathrooms. Sometimes they're known as granny flats, mother-in-law apartments, carriage houses. They can also take different forms. Basement apartments, converted garages or attics, could be a freestanding structure. So why permit accessory dwelling units? They do support the housing initiatives of One Chattanooga Strategic Plan, which is to expand the inventory of housing throughout the city. They provide housing options for senior family members and caretakers, adult children, college students, among others. They may assist senior homeowners maintain their independence by providing additional income to offset taxes and maintenance costs. They provide a housing rental option. We have several adopted land use plans. We actually have a whole list that Emily put together that we can review if there's time, that provide recommendations for ADUs. And the city currently does allow ADUs in the form-based code, so we do have some history with those in our community. There are two types of ADUs. There's attached and detached. There's definitions that are part of the ordinance, the proposed ordinance. Attached ADUs are an additional subordinate dwelling unit located on the same lot as the principal dwelling unit, which is joined to another dwelling unit on one or more sides by a wall and contained entirely within the footprint of the principal dwelling unit. So basically, they're attached or part of that primary dwelling unit. A detached accessory dwelling unit is a subordinate dwelling unit located on the same lot as the principal unit in a standalone separate structure. So they can be a completely new structure or conversion of an existing accessory structure. The proposed ADU ordinance, this is just a summary of it, and then we can get into a little bit more of the details. The draft ordinance is citywide outside the form-based code. So the form-based code does address the ADUs. This is a citywide ordinance. It allows detached and attached ADUs in any zone district where single-family dwellings are permitted use. Just right off the top, I'm thinking M1 is the only zone I'm aware of that does not allow dwellings. So this hopefully will be widely used. ADUs are only permitted as an accessory to a single-family detached dwelling when constructed on the same lot as that dwelling. So I'm going to skip to the bottom. They can't be permitted with a townhouse, duplex, or condominium unit. When there's a single-family detached dwelling, an ADU is permitted. The maximum size of that size shall not exceed 700 square feet, and you can only have one ADU in conjunction with a principal dwelling unit. So the ordinance, just to note, doesn't supersede homeowner association rules or deed restrictions. So just as a reminder, there are other items out there that might impact the ADU. Ownership, this is highlighted in green. I hope you can see that. I'll try to note that. We have a couple items that are highlighted in green. We're going to touch on these again at the end. So I'll mention them, but we will have a slide at the end that discusses these a little bit further. The ADU shall be owned by the same property owner as the principal dwelling unit and cannot be subdivided or otherwise separated in ownership such that the ADU is located on a different lot than the principal dwelling unit. They must be on the same lot as the principal dwelling unit, and the property owner is required to occupy one of the dwelling units as their permanent residence. ADUs are not considered a dwelling unit when we're calculating density. A lot of the times I'll mention, like the sand switch case, we talked about density. So often when we're talking about planned unit development, we will talk about density. ADUs are not going to contribute to that density number. ADUs shall have a safe, direct, and convenient pedestrian access to a street when required. I'm mentioning some of the highlights. Some of this has a little bit more specific language in this case when required by the director of LDO or their designee. So I just wanted to start with a brief overview. Existing required there's no minimum on-site parking requirement for ADUs, but existing required parking has to be maintained or replaced if it's lost due to the creation of an ADU. Shipping containers and RVs shall not be permitted as an ADU. ADUs must have a permanent foundation or be attached to an existing permanent structure. Again, we're seeing some of that green text, meaning we'll revisit it again at the end. The proposed ordinance says ADU shall be of similar architectural design, style, appearance, and character of the principal dwelling unit. And it discusses matching facade color, building materials, roof form, and pitch and windows. The ADUs must have a separate entrance located on the side yard or rear yard. An entrance at the front of the principal dwelling is allowed under certain circumstances, and those circumstances are specified in the ordinance, and I'm happy to answer any questions if we want to get into details on that. So we have detached ADUs and attached ADUs. I'm going to go through the requirements for the detached ADU to start with. They can be located on a rear or side yard only. They're not permitted in the front yard, and that is the front yard is detailed by the zoning ordinance. They're not allowed in the front yard. Maximum height is 24 feet or 2 stories, and they can't exceed the height of the principal dwelling unit if it's lower than 24 feet. So it is intended to be an accessory to that principal unit. And then there's setbacks shown there depending on whether there's a common lot line or an alley. You'll see the primary street front setback is highlighted in green. It shows us 40-foot minimum, but we have a potential revision to that later in the presentation. So attached ADUs. So these fall in line a little bit more with kind of the regular setbacks found in a zone, since these are attached or part of a primary structure. So they must meet the minimum setback requirements as required for the principal structure. So you would defer to the zone regulations to determine setbacks. Height. In preparing for the presentation, I realized the language of the ordinance says must meet the maximum height of the zone district. Our intention was it shall not exceed the maximum height of the zone district. It doesn't have to be, if the zone allows something very tall, it doesn't have to do that, just cannot exceed that. So we would request that this change be made should council move forward with the proposal. And in the attached ADUs, exterior staircases should not be located in the front facade of the structure. So this is just some kind of a listing of other related items. You can have a home occupation in the ADU or the principal dwelling unit, but you can't have one in both. So a home occupation is allowed, but there's only one per lot. There is some language in the ordinance about converting an ADU. And the ordinance also requires that the RPA will conduct an annual review of the standards and review process. This is very similar to what we did for the form-based code when it was adopted. We did an annual review every year for, I don't know, let's say 3 or 4 years. The first year we had quite a few changes for that new ordinance, and then the need for addressing any concerns or revisions really tapered off over time. So we felt that was a good process to maintain. So we'll conduct an annual review. If there's, of course, any concerns, those can be addressed prior to that annual review. So that is an overview of the proposed ordinance. I'm going to also present some changes to the proposed ordinance, and these requested changes are from the administration based on some of the feedback they have received. So there's 3 items for your consideration. They're not currently part of the Planning Commission version that's part of your packet. So I'm going to start with the first one, which is really just kind of more of a technical issue. For detached ADUs, we have the setback has to be 40 feet. The change that makes sense is not permitted in the front setback of a principal dwelling unit. Because they can be in the side yard, we kind of got into discussion on how that would be permitted. That's just a little bit more technical and would fall in line with the general, I guess, the general permitting of any residence. The second item is design standards. The PC version has ADUs shall be of a similar architectural design, style, appearance, and character, and then gives examples to including but not limited facade color, building materials, roof form, pitch, and windows. One of the reasons that this is coming with a recommendation to remove that standard is that it's subjective. It can be difficult to enforce. It's not required for other housing types. A single-family home We do not have outside of historic districts. We don't look at paint colors or roof form and pitch. Also, it could increase cost to the homeowner if they have to provide architectural drawings for permit review, and that's not required for single-family residential development. Dallas Rucker is here. He did make some calls to some of his peers in other cities asking about how this could work, and they did seem to support the difficulty of trying to enforce kind of this architectural design. And lastly, live in the principal dwelling unit, or they can live in the unit. That is to remove that. Occupation can be very difficult to enforce. Removing the owner-occupied requirement will allow the opportunity for 2 long-term rental units on a lot. So the requested changes here for additional considerations are not part of the ordinance, can be included. All or however council would like to move forward with that. And Mr. Chair, I have some additional slides. It might be more background if anyone is interested, but that is the overview of the ordinances proposed.
Karen, thank you. Does council have, I see the light starting to come now. I'll save my comment to the very end. Madam Vice Chair, I see your light first.
Yes, Karen. In regards to the square footage, I see that it's 700. Would there be any issues with increasing that to 1,000 square feet as far as building codes are concerned?
I would defer to Dallas on building codes. There is variation. We started with a peer review, and there is variation across the country. I would defer to Dallas if there's any concerns about changing the maximum size from 700 to 1,000 square feet. I don't know if Dallas would like to come forward or speak to that, but I would defer to any building code issues to Dallas.
Okay, thank you.
Dallas Rucker, come on down.
Well, we like to say all things are possible in the building code. Some things are just more expensive than others when you start getting larger and higher. The 1,000 square feet, we had, at one time, we have a 2 exit requirement, and we modified the 2 exits for anything 700 square feet and smaller, like in the accessory dwelling units in the form-based code. I mean, we can amend building codes to a certain degree. But out of the 1,000 square feet, I mean, if you do 1,000 square feet for 2 stories, you're going to have a 2,000 square foot building in the backyard if it allows 2 stories. There's a way to do anything, like I said, with the building code, and for safety reasons, I don't see any huge problems with going to the 1,000 square feet. It's just, sometimes we like to keep things that we have in other parts of the code, so we don't, some of these building code and zoning things we're getting into, each project becomes a research project, and with the amount of staff we have, when it used to take 15 minutes to issue a permit, it takes an hour now. So, but yeah, it can be, I don't see anything hugely wrong with 1,000.
So if it was increased to 1,000 square feet, would they be required, would the property owner be required to have 2 exits? Is that what you're saying?
Under the current code, it would. Yes, ma'am.
On the current code. Okay, thank you.
You good, Vice Chair?
Yes.
Thank you. Councilman Henderson.
Thank you. First, when is this slated to hit the agenda? And I guess, are we going to run it through Planning and Zoning Committee first?
We're going to actually discuss this again, sir, next week in a special.
So this is
Planning and
just a
Zoning
presentation. If we
Yes,
have
sir.
questions,
Yes,
really,
sir.
we probably need to
That's
save them.
correct. Yes, sir.
Okay. That answers my question.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Hill, did I see your light pop in?
I'm good.
Okay, I do see Councilwoman Coonrod.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Karen, on the R2 zoning, would that, like an ADU be allowed to be built in the R2 zone?
Based on the requirements, the R2 zone is in the city, is in a zone that allows single-family detached dwellings. And, but you could not have it, it's not permitted with a townhouse, duplex, or condo unit. So if the if the R2 zone had a single-family unit, then a principal single-family unit, detached unit, it could have an ADU.
Thank you, Councilwoman. I don't see any other lights for today, Karen, but I would like to make a comment. Being part of the conversation at Planning Commission, being part of the original presentation, I believe in 18, when this was.
18 or 19,
Yeah, when
probably.
this was first brought to us. One of my hangups was a lack of design standards. So if you'll have to forgive me if I have some heartburn in totally removing those design standards. I feel like we are sacrificing quality and or character, if you will, and in this process. So I just want you to be prepared that I think the design standards, although could maybe be worked, it could be removed later. I think it's actually, when I talk to people about an ADU, and I did this not long ago in a community meeting, the design standards were something people were really actually wanting to see more of, and instead of just without design standards, without any continuity in design. And so that's something that I think you're going to hear from me again on a personal level. Chris?
Chairman, I just wanted to say if you wanted to meet and work out, perhaps there's a middle that the administration can meet with you on the design standards to where we can come up with something that makes sense, but is also enforceable.
I agree. Because I think if you're, in the building process, Chris, if you're setting out to build one of these, you're going to know what it's going to look like, hopefully, before you invest that kind of money. And I think that some sort of design review, design standards, I think we need something. And whether it's a halfway meeting point on this, obviously we'll probably put some sort of sunset in this, renewals, revisit a year out, which I think is smart. I think I learned that from several of my members on this council to have that time frame built in. But I'm always open and happy to have a conversation.
We can do that as soon as you're ready, Chairman. And Mayor Kelly is very sensitive to adding cost to housing in Chattanooga when we're seeking to do the opposite. So we were very concerned about architectural renderings and the added cost that would add. But I think we can probably find a middle ground and come up with a solution.
I think we can. Thank you very much. Dr. Burrs, I see your light.
Just a couple, I think it's a great idea. Just a couple of questions of clarification. Obviously, I concur with design standards. Let me make sure in your explanation that I understood correctly. So it has to be a permanent structure affixed to the ground. So would a mobile home permanently affixed to the ground suffice?
We talked about that, and I can look and get a specific answer to that. I remember talking about it, but I don't remember the outcome of that, whether that would be an option. I think that the way we have it written with the permanent foundation language, either through digging and pouring a footer or being attached to an existing permanent structure, would not, but I will double check and be prepared next week with an answer.
Okay, well, you said no crates or this sort of thing, but I wondered if anybody had thought about mobile homes that are permanently attached. Okay, and then the last one, the one that was lack of enforceability, the owner living in the main residence or in the ADU. So if the owner doesn't live anywhere, then aren't you in effect having a lot with two houses on it? Is the net effect not a subdivision?
So the lot is related to division of land. A parcel is who owns and taxing, and that's different. So you could not subdivide the property and have two units. So subdivisions, minor subdivisions are approved by the regional planning agency. So I would think we would just be on the lookout for something like that.
Well, and that's what I'm saying, on the lookout for. That might be even more difficult to enforce than I get what you're talking about with the owner not living there. I mean, how do you know? I'm just bringing that up. I think the net effect could be a really good idea that is getting messed up by people who like to think differently.
And we did go through lots of scenarios, but we will talk about that again before next week and just make
That's
sure we
fine.
didn't miss
That's
anything.
fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Burrs. Councilwoman Coonrod.
Thank you, Chair. Chris and administration, I'm so glad you all are, wanting to move forward with the ADU, at least entertaining the idea. It is needed. It's been passed that it's needed, and I'm really excited that you all didn't create just a specific zone to limit ADUs in. So now in Eastdale or other communities that, struggling with affordable housing or low income housing, and we now have the opportunity to create housing for people to, and, I'm excited that now I get to, use my backyard to create ADU and housing opportunities for others. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Hill.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the questions of my colleagues, and Councilwoman Coonrod brought up the question about R2, and it occurs to me that I've a lot of feedback on this, and I'll get with you all about it, but I would like us to make sure that we come up with a very practical, useful ordinance that makes it, that reduces barriers to people being able to create these because of our need for housing units and affordable housing units. We need about 5,000 affordable units. And I do challenge folks to come up with some creative ways to work together to ensure that some of these are in fact appropriate costs for people who are low income. But thinking about why we might exclude an ADU and an R2 or a condo, I always, my first thought is the garage apartment. And if I've got a duplex in my district and there could be a garage at the back and put apartments on the top of that, to me, that's a win. So I would like us to consider a little bit more our multifamily and how we allow for that to be part of the conversation, among other things. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Henderson.
I'll be real quick. So to piggyback, and I started to ask this a while ago, can we, if the primary dwelling is a single story, the ADU says it can not exceed the height of the primary, but if we're talking about a garage apartment, could that be permitted? Because there would be a lot of people, I think, that would gain an advantage living in, and I've already had someone email me about this. They said, we live in a single story. We would like to do a garage apartment. I'm not sure what the problem would be in that, but I think that's something that we need to consider.
I think the ordinance would allow that. The intention is to allow, if you had in this example kind of shown here, if this is attached, let's get it detached maybe. If that was an existing garage and you wanted to convert the attic space or have a ADU on top, it's intended to do that as long as it doesn't exceed 24 feet or 2-story maximum height.
Well, I'm talking about if the primary residence
is 1 story.
Is 1 story.
Yes. Then
could they then construct a garage apartment?
You could probably, I don't think you could have a garage and then an apartment above it based on the way it's written. You could convert your garage to an apartment.
See, I think we're limiting ourselves now.
Okay, we'll take a look at that. So really it looks for like the example for the detached in this case is the limiting it to the size of to the height of the primary structure. In that example, if you only have 1 story, are we limiting this as a potential option because you only have a 1-story home?
Yeah.
Okay.
You good, Councilman?
I'm good.
So Karen, Chris, thank you for presenting this today. we have a lot to digest. I want to encourage thoughts and comments and suggestions about this as we move forward. Next week, we will have ADUs again in a special planning and zoning committee meeting that will be actually chaired by Councilwoman Hill. And so I want you to be mindful of what we have heard today. Does any other comments need to transpire before we adjourn for a few moments until our 4 o'clock order of business meeting? And we are adjourned till 4.